was it called? Diane's Arrow or something. I don't know, it doesn't matter. So we got back to this backpackers lodge, and turned out that the Canadian girl, Carol was her name, she had a bit of an attraction to me. She was also a heavy drinker. So we got a room from the front desk. It was like I think a 3-person room. Okay, the beds, yeah, like a 3-person room. So she was going to stay in the room. She got her stuff and moved into the room with me and the English guy. So yeah, then the next stop was down to the bar, and you could drink, you know, they had Greek beer and that sort of stuff. And when we got back up to the room, you know, me and her started getting pretty friendly, and so we moved the single beds together. Me and her made like a double bed, and the poor old Englishman, he saw what was going on. He was going to be left out, so he moved on the next day. So it's just me and her in this room with a double bed now. And yeah, looked around Athens a bit. I remember there was this like Austrian guy from Austria. He used to go to Greece every year, and he'd always be sitting down in the bar area. He's quite a crazy guy, you know, but really charismatic. But if you picked up anything cylindrical like a pen or something, he'd try and light it like a cigarette. Anything you held up towards you, he'd try and light it. A pen or a stem of a glass or whatever. So yeah, we went out one night. This was horrible. Me and her and this Austrian guy, a couple of others, and we went to this seaside bar on the other side of Athens. There were all these sailors there. They were getting me to drink like shooters or something. They were putting a hole in a beer can, and then I can't remember, they'd rip the lid off and it'd all go down your throat. I know I got horribly drunk, ended up with some other woman. That was a disaster. Poor Carol said, you know, whatever you do, don't leave me there. I left her there, went home the next day, hungover to the max. But anyway, so I hired this, yeah, we are getting to Africa, but you'll see why when I got to Africa, I didn't have enough money to do what I set out to do. So I hired this vesper in Athens, you know, like that's just to toot around the city. But I was going to take this vesper right down to the bottom of Greece. I'd never ridden a vesper. I didn't have a motorbike license or anything again. Anyway, I hired this thing. And I remember me and Carol, we went on a day trip to sort of get used to it. We went down to a temple that overlooks the ocean. Really nice, had some good photos taken that day. I remember I had one of those headscarves like the people in Gaza wear, the Palestinians. One of those checked, and I used to wrap it around my face. I got it in Paris. When I was in Paris, I went up to the Montmartre to have my sketch done and look around. So anyway, yeah, me and Carol went on the scooter to this temple and all that. And anyway, so I said to her, well, I'm heading down to the island of Kythera. I can't remember the sequence of events, whether I left my stuff with Carol, whether she was still in that place when I came back. I don't know, maybe she'd moved on. But she was actually going to Australia. She actually took that leather jacket with the tassels. She carried it with her all the way from bloody Greece to Australia. I think she stopped in Asia on the way. And she deposited it with my sister. But anyway, so I go down on this Vespa, down through Sparta, like down hills like that, with curving bends and then up hills, and this thing was just, I was struggling to go on the flat, never mind up a hill. But yeah, I got to Delphi, and I saw these in Sparta, the orange groves, the olive groves. Sparta was spectacular. I must say that the Greeks never really took to me at all. I've got to remember, I wore jeans that had these jeans patched up. They were full of holes, and I put leather on the inside of them. and stitched the leather to the jeans. But they looked a bit scrappy, so Greek people, they liked wealthy tourists. They didn't want bums. And so they didn't really take to me, and I found them rude and arrogant and ignorant. But anyway, I got down to a place called Kythera. Now, the girl that I was head over heels in love with from the railways, she'd come from the island of Kythera. And I was so enamoured with her that I took Greek lessons back in Australia. So I had rudimentary Greek. So yeah, I got the ferry across from the bottom of Greece across to this island, Kythera. Now, the ferry got us there at about 5 in the afternoon, I suppose. Within minutes, the whole ferry was empty. Like there were trucks and utes and buckies to pick up people getting off the ferry, and then they're all gone within minutes, and I'm left there on my vesper. So I started riding in, and it got dark real quick, and I'm going down, there's villages, and I didn't know where she lived particularly. I had nowhere to go. I just wanted to see Kythera, to prove to her my undying love. So yeah, so I remember that first night I slept in like a bus shelter on the ground in the dirt on my sleeping bag. And then the next, because I was going into villages, there were dogs barking at me, lights were coming on, like the whole island seemed to go dark by 8 o'clock at night. So the next day I got up and I rode the vesper into probably the town of Kythera. And it was sort of in a bay on the ocean. It was off season, so there wasn't all the restaurants open along the beachfront. I managed to find one place to stay. And yeah, as I said, they didn't really speak much English. They weren't interested in me. I remember I wanted to go to their bloody church, to the Greek church, because I wanted to pray for this woman. And yeah, they couldn't understand, and it was never open. They couldn't understand what I wanted anyway. So I don't know whether I spent a couple of nights there. I don't even think I swam, The ocean was beautiful, it was blue and all that, but as I said, it was off season. So I don't even know if I swam. I just looked around for a couple of days. I picked some wildflowers I sent back to this woman. And then heading back, I get the bloody flat wheel again. And I had to push this Vespa. They're so bloody heavy when you're pushing a flat-wheeled scooter. A guy gave me a lift on the back of a bloody tractor, and he got my bike to the ferry, and I got back onto the Greek mainland, and I pushed it across to some repair shop, and they put a new tyre on for me. So then I made my way back to Athens, and I remember, coming into Athens, it was about 8 o'clock at night when the scooter started playing up more, and it was real busy. It was like a 3-lane highway coming into Athens, and it was dark. So what the scooter was doing, when you were revving, your headlamp was quite bright, but when you stopped revving, the lamp just went off, and then you're cruising along in darkness. So you got to keep revving to have the headlight working. So I kept going as much as I could, and that meant going as fast as I could, so I had a headlamp to see where I'm going. Eventually, I don't know, it died on me. So I chained it up to a pole. I was about 15 or 20k out of the centre of Athens, I think. Chained it to a pole, and maybe got a bus into town or something. So the next day I just left the keys in an envelope with a map of where I'd left the bike. And so yeah, that was kind of my time in Athens, or in Greece. As I said, yeah, that was okay. I did find a place that sold souvlaki and chips, and that was probably the best food I had there. So now I'm going to fly to Cairo, right? And I don't know if I flew Greek Air or something. Probably, yeah, I think I flew with the Greek airline. Got one of those cheap flights. So Athens to Cairo. And same sort of deal, most of them were Greeks or Egyptians, but there was an English guy there about my age, and once again sort of said hello and made eye contact on that. We're on the plane. It was a small plane. So I landed in Cairo. It was about 5 o'clock at night, 6 at night. I'm going to end this chapter, by the way, in Egypt. And his name, I think his name was Lee. So he was sort of part Chinese, but he was from London. He was like a Cockney, but he had a little bit of Chinese look in him. He had like a really long braided tail on his hair. But he was an adventurer, you know. He had an idea of adventure in Egypt. You got to remember, in those days, my only information on where I was going or what I was going to do or where I would stay was the Lonely Planet book. And so yeah, we got off the plane and we cleared customs and all that, and we were walking along, and this guy in a Mercedes, like a beaten up old Mercedes, was sort of tagging along behind us, and I'm telling him to fuck off. He was sort of leaning down the window, one in the window and going, "Hi, do you want somewhere to stay? Are you looking for somewhere to stay? I can help you, my brother has a place." I'm telling him to fuck off. But me and this Lee, we were marching around for I don't know how long, until I was absolutely bushed. And eventually this Egyptian guy in the car, eventually I turned around and said, "Come on, Lee, let's just go with him." So we got in his car and he took us around to this, again, like a backpacker's place. It was multi-level though, and it was real old, like wrought iron stairwell. I mean, it would have been a fire hazard from hell. The Egyptian behind the front desk was just wearing a singlet, white singlet. There were cats all around him, and they were like dormitories, single beds in this dormitory thing. So it turns out that the little fella that picked us up and drove us there, he was studying to be a doctor, which would come in handy before I knew it. So I got his phone number. He said if you want to, he was trying to practice his English. If you want me to take you to the museum or show you the pyramid. Yeah, I had to redo this section. It's about an hour or so since I started the video, so I had to redo the last section. We were in Cairo. The trainee doctor had taken us to his brother or cousin's dorm accommodation. So Lee and I had our first night in Cairo. We went out that night. It was hot. You know, it was probably 10 o'clock at night or something when we started wandering around, being young people, looking for a bar. Well, there weren't any bars. There were lots of fruit juice bars. There was a lot of activity going on, you know, donkeys trotting up the street, Egyptians hammering things under sort of spotlights with insects all around. Yeah, a lot of noise going on. But what was open was chemists all around the place. So I remembered in my South African days, we used to drink cough medicine. I know it sounds absolutely insane, but it's how my brain worked in those days. So I said to Lee, you know, let's have a bit of fun. Why don't we get some cough medicine? He was kind of open to the idea. So I go in, I buy 2 bottles of cough medicine. I can't remember what the ingredient is that makes you buzz. And I don't really want to remember. But when we drank it as kids, yeah, you really went on a trip. You saw all sorts of coloured lights, you stayed up all night. It's pretty trippy. I bought this cough medicine. I drank my bottle. He kind of, I think he went for about half a bottle of his. He had more sense than I did. And that's where this guy, the guy that drove us there, came in handy. So when we got back to I started seeing a few coloured lights and all that. When we got back to the lodge, I started throwing up violently. I was as sick as a dog, so much so that I was waking everyone else in the dorm. They're all going, "What's happening? What's wrong?" And I'm going, "Oh no, I ate dodgy food." Anyway, I said to Lee, "Go and call this guy. Tell him I'm dying, you know." So he came along, and Lee went and rang him. He was about an hour or two before he came back to see me, and he bought some things to settle my stomach. So anyway, I don't know if it was the next day I just rested, or we went out to the pyramids. So Lee, as I said, he was quite an adventurous sort of guy, a bit of a Lawrence of Arabia sort of character. He always wore the army shirt, he had binoculars, had like a foraging cap. So I went to the pyramids with him. We got the bus out there. So he started talking about, well, we'll hire some camels. And you know, you look around the pyramids, the Egyptians were incredibly annoying, wanting to rip you off at every turn, bakshish, anything. Any time you stop to take a photo of something or look at something, one of them would come running over, wanting to put his hand out for bakshish. So anyway, Lee came up and said, yeah, I've talked to this guy, because you know there's a lot of guys with camels all around the pyramids, so you can have a photographic moment with a camel in the pyramid. He says, I met this guy, he's going to hire us these camels, and he's going to take us out and show us some of these step pyramids. Okay, so the guy comes around, he had one big camel that he gave Lee, and I think the small camel was for me and the Egyptian to sit on. I wasn't very happy about that. I wanted my own camel, but the guy only had two, so I had to go along with it. And so on the way there, and it felt like we were in the middle. It felt like we were in the middle of the Sahara, even though the Cairo suburbs were just beyond these palm trees. But all that way was sand dunes. So on the way, the Egyptian with the camels started feeling us out. You know, what do you like? What would you like? So of course we mentioned hash. So he says, yeah, I've got a friend. So he took us to this hut where this guy lived, and we sat on the floor on these Turkish mats, rugs, carpets. And the guy comes out, he's very friendly. He makes us this Egyptian tea, very sweet mint tea, little cups, and then he comes out with a hash. And he had like a primitive bong made out of a jar. And we made this mix. We started smoking hash. Me and Lee are turning into giggling schoolgirls. Our eyes have gone real thin, and we're giggling away. And so he wanted to take us and show us these Egyptian tombs. And so that's what we did. We went out after we got completely smashed on the hash. We went with this fellow on the camels again. He took us to these tombs. You know, like thousands and thousands of people must have climbed into this tomb, but it felt like we were discovering. We felt like Howard Carter, you know. I see wondrous things inside. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then I don't know how long I stuck around Cairo, but Lee was talking about going to Luxor. I didn't even know about the temples of Luxor, but he did. So he says, we've got to go down to, we got the train from Cairo down to Luxor. These fantastic the temples. I think, is it Karnak? But you know, I was a bit of a photographer. I got a lot of slides that I took down there. I had quite a nice camera, didn't know how to use it, but anyway, yeah, I took some really nice slides. And for it's a photographer's dream, these temples. And then we went out to the Valley of the Kings. I think we got a taxi or something, stopped on the way. There's these two huge monoliths sitting sort of on seats guarding the entrance to the Valley of the Kings. I don't remember tombs of individuals. I probably went into the tomb of, Tutankhamun. A lot of people, hot, dusty, and once again the hands out by the Egyptians all the way for money. And just bugging you, you know. So I don't really remember individual tombs I went to. I wish I did, because I love Egyptian stuff now. Anyway, I'd already organised to go to the Sudan. So I'd been to the Sudanese embassy in Cairo, and because I had a British passport, I was travelling on a British passport, I got a bit of preference, because there were hundreds of people hanging around the embassy trying to get stuff, and they saw me and they parted the waves and got me through. So I had a visa to go to Sudan. So I was going to take the train from Wadi Halfa on the border into the Sudan to Khartoum. I wanted to see Omdurman, where Kitchener and the British, you know, and Gordon of Khartoum, the Battle of Omdurman, all that sort of stuff. But more than that, I wanted to make my way overland. But that was going to be difficult. So my Lonely Planet book that I mentioned, it at that time, and once again we're talking the mid-80s, you couldn't go through the south of Sudan. There was a war going on. You could skirt round to the Central African Republic, I think it was, but but that was dodgy. They were taking hostages, European hostages. I can't remember, but the advice in the book was, it's going to be an effort, it might be dangerous, you'll just have to see when you get there what you can do. Maybe you have to hire a car, bribe someone to get you through the border or whatever. All that started to scare me. So anyway, a whole load of us got a taxi down to Wadi Halfa. That's where those huge temples are that were rescued from the Aswan Dam when they flooded it. Once again, pretty impressive. And then I got the taxi back to where we were staying in Luxor, Lee and I think that's where we parted ways. I think he went back to Cairo, and I was waiting for the train for a day or two in Luxor. Whatever, because I had enough time to think, and that was my mistake. Perhaps, probably, maybe. So I got cold feet. I thought, I don't have enough money, I'm going to get down to the Sudan, and then I can't get through anyway, I can't do it overland, I'll get kidnapped, or, all sorts of things went through my head. Essentially, and I'd spent a lot of money in Europe and America before I even got to Africa. So I got cold feet, and I decided to fly from Cairo down to Nairobi. Hi everybody. Got my new reading glasses. What do you think? They go with my top. So I just wanted to talk to you before this chapter finishes of the trip. A couple of things I've remembered and I've found. I did find a ticket to a concert I saw in England in '86 in Birmingham. I saw Alice Cooper in Birmingham. I didn't mention that, and I found the ticket when I found this book. This book is like a diary I made of, it wasn't every day, but there's quite a few things that, it's of this trip. It's a couple of interesting things that I think will fill out the picture a bit better as we go down through Africa. And one thing that I wanted to remember was, I haven't been all that complimentary about the Egyptian people. When you're visiting a heavily touristed place, of course the locals are going to want to make money out of the tourists. It's their only livelihood. And that was kind of true for most of my time, but there was one time when I met an Egyptian, and it wasn't a financial transaction. Let me explain. So quite often I was feeling sick when I was traveling, whether it was the heat or the dust. I didn't so much get food sick, but I probably always had a bit of a hangover the next day. I never knew whether I was probably a hypochondriac. That's what I'm trying to say. So there was one time I was walking around the back streets of Cairo looking for a hospital, and this fella came up and spoke to me and asked me what I was. He spoke reasonable English, not real good, but acceptable. But he asked me what I was looking for, so I told him, I'm looking for this hospital, and he got talking, and he said, would you like to come back and have a cup of tea with us? And I forgot about my ailment, so I went back with him, and we walked up these stairs. It was a very rough brick kind of apartment complex, apartment being a fairly generous term, but yeah, they were flats, apartments. We walked up these stairs and we went into this apartment, and his mum came out. She was a big woman, Egyptian. She spoke no English, so he nattered away to her, and he took me to his room, and we sat on the bed. He put this sort of bedspread on the bed, and he straightened it out, and the mother came in with this tea. The tea was always terrific, this sweet mint tea. And she started coming back with these trays of food. It's fantastic, like hummus dips and bread and real good stuff, olives. And we hear all this nattering. The neighbours started coming around to see me, and I remember that I was trying to tell them about this wedding I'd been to. I don't even remember whose wedding it was. It was like a Middle Eastern wedding. They were Lebanese or something, and I was telling these women about in English with lots of facial expressions and hand movements about the women at this wedding. They were doing that. They call it. I was telling these women about at the wedding. Is it undulating or? But they go. They sort of make a noise. I can't do it very well. I can't even describe it. But this fella's mother and these neighbours, they kind of knew what I was getting at, and they were just in hysterics. Anyway, they took me up to the roof of this building, and all the neighbours and all that around there, they could lean out of windows, or leaning out and saying, "Hello, hello, where you from?" So that was the only instance when I sort of got close to your average Egyptian person, and I'll never forget that day. It was the generosity and the hospitality was exceptional. So anyway, so this book has the day when I turned back, and I can feel it in the writing. It mentions here that I had $1,400 left to travel the length of Africa hitchhiking and taking buses and trains, as I would have done. $1,400 these days doesn't seem much at all. It was more then, but even so, I felt that I didn't have enough, and you can see why, because I blew too much money in England and Europe and America. So this is I think I'll read you the 2 days before I made the monumentous decision to turn back and fly from Cairo to Nairobi. And as I said, there was no guarantee you could get through the Sudan, and it was just, Anyway, so on the 18th of February, I've written here, so I'll read it to you. Another step made. I've just picked up my ticket to Wadi Halfa. The place was full of Sudanese standing around. I thought when the window opened there'd be a mad rush, but fortunately I was shown around this office by the first guy told me the boats were full for 2 weeks. So I must have been looking at maybe getting a boat down to Khartoum. I didn't know that. I nearly died, but I was told to meet Mr. Abda. He got me onto a boat for Monday. That's 5 days of waiting. Still better than 2 weeks. It's going to be a lonely old wait. Lee leaves tomorrow, and Drew won't be long. I don't know who Drew was. I don't know how I'll amuse myself till then. Yesterday we went to Abu Simbel. That's where that big temple was that they rescued from the floodwaters. We left at 6:30 a.m. after a heated argument with a taxi driver. I called him a bovine flatulence. That's something Lee says, which is a cow's fart. Easily amused. Anyway, we got going eventually with 8 in a taxi. It took 3 long hours. I don't know if it was worth it. The temple cost £3.50 student price, and certainly was grand, but I've seen a lot of Egyptology now. It's hard to take it all in. The other taxi broke down on the drive home, so we fooled around with it for a while, then had to squeeze the others into 3 taxis to come home. What a day. Really doing nothing now. I wander around the bazaar, but don't look at anything, just the motion to amuse me. I'm stuck like this. I think the size of the task before me is coming home at last. I want my sister or girlfriend. So that seems to be what's happened, so that by the next day, and this is the crunch day, so it says the 19th of February, so we're looking at 1987. This could be the most important entry of the diary. It will end a dream of 3 years. Let me explain. Africa overland. I vowed I would do it all overland. Now I retreat. Aswan is the last fort south. I will throw down my guns, run back to Cairo and fly to Nairobi. All I can say is to go through the Sudan would have tested me to the limit if I had a lot of money, good spirits and health, no women on my mind, plenty of time, and was really happy. But I'm none of these. I don't have 1/20th of the strength to do it. To try would jeopardize the gorillas and Kilimanjaro. I was crazy to think after all Europe I could still do Africa on my own. My biggest mistake was to underestimate the enemy. The Sudan is bigger, harsher and stronger than I even thought possible. I have a rotten head cold. I'll book a ticket back to Cairo and get the first to Nairobi, and I can only say I tried. Perhaps I always knew I would fail. That gives you an idea of my mindset. Well, yeah, look, I guess when Lee left, I was lonely and waiting 5 days. These days I could do it, you know. Well, actually, I don't know. These days I would view it differently. I think my mindset is somewhat different now, but by the sound of that, the idea of waiting on my own for 5 days to get that boat down to the Sudan with the uncertainty of getting over through the border into the Central African Republic and then across to the north of Kenya. But as you're going to hear, I did some fantastic stuff in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. I still had a lot of good stuff to come, but the overland idea wasn't to be. So just thought I'd clarify that for you. Because we got the diary now, I'll be able to remember a bit more. So I wanted to go to Kenya. So I remember getting the train back to Cairo. I looked up Lee, but he wasn't there. I couldn't find him. I never saw him again. And I ended up flying. I was heartbroken, you know. I was so disappointed in myself. It proved to me again that, you know, I was hopeless and that I couldn't do anything, that I, you know, was everything I attempted was a failure. I know now that's the way I thought then. And I still had a fantastic time, as you're going to hear. But yeah, I was very disappointed in myself for giving up at that stage. And so I'm going to give up now. And then this is the first chapter of Return to Africa 86. And yeah, when we resume, we'll head for Cairo, for Kenya, Tanzania, and the Congo. So look for episode 2 of this story, this travel monologue, and we'll see you soon.